I'm very excited to be joined on the show for the first time by a candidate running in the Democratic race in New York's 11th district, Brittany Ramos DeBarros. Welcome to the Damage Report.
Thanks for having me.
Very glad to have you on. It's actually been a little bit since we've spoken with a candidate. We talk a lot about what we think might happen in this upcoming midterm, but let's start to find out about some of the people that are gonna be running in it. So this is the first time that we're speaking. Can you tell us a little bit about your background pre-launching your bid for this congressional seat?
Sure. I grew up in a conservative military family, and I think that really put me in the position to be excited about the values and really passionate about the values that we say America's about: service, equality, these things. But I'm also biracial, and I could see at a young age that the America that my white family was living in was just not the same as the America that my Black and Puerto Rican family were experiencing. And I also, saw my parents and families all around us work incredibly hard, work multiple jobs, and we struggled to keep our housing and food on the table. So I ended up going to school on an Army scholarship, and when I graduated, I had deployment orders to Afghanistan in hand and was already responsible for 40 lives, being a platoon leader. And when I went, I really believed that what we were told, that I was gonna go help fight to protect the Afghan people and fight for democracy. But when I was there, I could see the way that corporations seemed to be running the show, and it seemed like we were doing a lot more harm than good. So I came back, and I think I had this unfulfilled hunger to serve. So I got involved. I got my first nonprofit job and got involved in economic and racial justice work in major projects to create jobs, to close income and wealth gaps in struggling communities in major cities all across the country, and learned so much through that. And then eventually got involved in movement when Colin Kaepernick took a knee. It hit me like lightning, the way that the flag and veterans like myself were being weaponized against a man who was standing up for the very freedoms that I supposedly signed up to protect and fight for in the military. And I realized that I had to use my voice to tell the truth about my experience and speak out about the need for, if we're going to talk about patriotism, it needs to be in service of fighting for the values that we say we believe in. I got involved with the Poor People's Campaign, and I got involved with About Face, Veterans Against the War, and other movement work through that. And never thought I would run for office, but folks in my community came to me and asked me to run, and so here we are.
So you talk about your history in the military and about how you have to speak your truth. So we obviously, I've seen in some of your ads, you talk about how there's a lot of profiteering around the military, and we've certainly seen over the years that regardless of whether we're in wars or pulling out of wars, the budget always seems to go up even more than they ask for. So what are some of the big things that, were you to enter office, you'd want to maybe shift the Democratic Party on when it comes to issues having to do with veterans, foreign deployments, the military budget, those sorts of things?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the things that I'm running on are things that will benefit veterans, but will also benefit all of our families and communities. I think that we need to pass Medicare for all and raise the floor of basic healthcare that everyone has access to, and fully fund the VA. And that allows the VA to focus on the specialized care that is unique to veterans, because it means that veterans have more comprehensive access overall, and that's good for everyone. We need to, make sure that we're investing in quality, affordable housing all over the country. In New York, here in my district, that's a huge issue. I was just at public housing, and there's toxic paint peeling off the walls, and there's infestations that aren't being handled. And then I went to private housing in Park Hill, and people don't have heat and hot water right now. And that, and those are publicly subsidized buildings, and there's no excuse for that. And again, those issues that affect veterans, are layered on the issues that are impacting all of our communities. And so, I think specifically on military and foreign policy, though, we need to grapple with the fact that half that military budget is going to corporations, right? And I think that budget gets passed every cycle by people believing that it's going to support the troops and that we're going to invest in national security. And yet I remember sitting in Afghanistan with a platoon full of mechanics who knew how to fix our vehicles, and them literally not being able to fix the vehicles that would make that platoon able to operate and do the mission, because there were corporate contracts that said only corporate mechanics could work on those vehicles. And those are the kinds of just practical barriers that are actually undermining our national security and our ability to cultivate peace, if anything. And so we need a complete reframe around that. We need to change the way that decisions about the use of military force are made, because there has just been a runaway abuse of the executive power to kind of unilaterally make those decisions, and a failure of Congress to address that. And it shouldn't be legal for corporations who are getting 75% of their revenue from tax dollars and from the DoD budget to then turn around and put money back in the pockets of politicians who are making those decisions to keep those dollars flowing. I mean, that's naked corruption. That should be illegal. And so those are some of the things that we need to address so that we should be able to trust troops, veterans, the American public deserves to be able to trust that our leaders are making decisions based on what's actually going to make us more safe and what's actually good for our families.
Yeah, and not their own interest in terms of campaign finance, or they might just own the stocks themselves and they might be giving contracts and benefiting themselves directly. So when we think of the Democratic congressional delegation, we generally think of it as being both blue and also more progressive than most around the country. But the district you're running in is actually currently held by a Republican. Can you tell us a little bit about who you're running to eventually run against?
Sure, I'm running to unseat Trump Republican Nicole Malliotakis. And this is a woman who has literally never had a real job outside of political lobbying and politics. And now she sits on critical committees like the Foreign Affairs Committee and things like that, making decisions that are critical to our security and critical. And yet she also helped promote the big lie that really helped instigate the violent insurrection that we saw at the Capitol, which to me should be considered an act of treason. If anything is treason, I don't know how that's not. And then turned around and doubled down by voting against certifying the election results. She voted against the Equality Act. She voted against COVID relief. Almost everything that could actually help the communities that are struggling here in our district, she has opposed. And she's, all she's done is really fan the flames of kind of bigotry and fear and ignorance by palling around with other folks like Lauren Boebert. And for me, I'm running against her, but I'm also running on a vision that so many of us, most people in my district, it's thought of as this conservative place, but most people in my district, I think, are really disillusioned with both political parties. We have not had a candidate in this race run an unapologetically for the people platform, and even a kind of true blue Democrat platform, right? We've seen Democrats who have run really to the right in an effort to flip conservative voters, while the actual growing majority of our base, our potential base in our communities, is ignored. And so we're taking lessons out of the books of Missouri and Georgia and other places, and really focusing on energizing communities that are the majority but have been left out and left behind. And I think that is our best strategy for beating someone like Malliotakis. And we deserve to have someone who we know is really going to be fighting for families and everyday people here.
Okay. So finally, so we've had nearly a year of the Biden administration and Democrats having control of both the House and the Senate. And we've been through a couple different cycles of legislation being considered or talked about in the background but not considered. We've had political scandals and all that. And there have been a few instances where bold individuals have been able to make a mark by saying they're not going to, like they will vote against, for instance, the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Let's say that you had been in the seat you're running for right now since the beginning of this year. Where would you have seen yourself making your mark? Where do you feel like the party got it wrong or the country got it wrong and you could have made a difference? And where would you have done that?
Yeah, well, I think that we passed, I'm happy that investment in infrastructure got passed. And also I'm with the people who are saying this is not enough, right? So many of us worked so hard to get this majority. And the Democrats now control the presidency, the Congress, right? I mean, at this point we have to deliver. And so I would be one of those voices pushing really hard and saying we have to deliver on the promises that were made. And I think that, I'm really a pragmatist. I think people, are probably gonna try to paint me as some kind of like crazy lefty person. For me, what I say every day is this is not about left versus right for me. This is not about Democrat, Republican, or red versus blue. This is about top versus bottom. the idea that there is enough to go around, that we have almost 1,000 millionaires, if not more, in this city, right? It's the wealthiest city here in New York, in the world almost, or up there. And there's no reason that there's not enough to go around to meet everyone's basic needs, and we need a shift in priorities. And that's just common sense, right? And so any practical things that invest in families, that invest in our schools, in addressing the environmental crises that we're facing, in climate crisis, in investing in healthcare and the wraparound services that so many families need, I support. And those are the things we have to fight for, and not be shy or hesitant to tell the truth when people are getting in the way of advancing those things because of selfish agendas and political corruption.
Yeah. Sorry, there was one last thing I wanted to ask you. I actually forgot. The New York Muslim Action Network. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so we're so excited that they just announced their endorsement for our campaign yesterday. A lot of people, don't realize that our district has some of the largest and most diverse Arab and Muslim communities in the country. And it's a vote that has a lot of power, but is often undercounted and under-recognized in the influence that it has the potential to have and has had in past elections. And this is a new organization. They just got their, official status and everything not long ago, but many of them are really key community leaders who have been working on campaigns and making a huge difference in swinging campaigns one way or the other in this district for a really long time. And I know that, with their support, we are, already knocking doors, making phone calls, registering new voters, and putting in the work that it's going to take on the ground to really change the tide here.
Awesome. Well, you just listed a few different ways that people could potentially help, but where could they find out more about if they want to get involved in your campaign?
Of course, yes. Check us out on our website, which is brittanyforcongress.org, all spelled out normally. You can see it there on the ticker, and there you can donate, you can sign up to volunteer, and you can sign up for our email list to stay updated on the things. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that as a grassroots campaign, not taking any corporate PAC money, all of those things, investment of time and dollars and skills are so critical for our campaign like ours to be successful.
Awesome. Brittany Ramos DeBarros, I really appreciate you taking time to talk to us.
Thanks for having me.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.